It's not easy to tackle transformation in mining or in any industry. And today's guest on Change Itself is part of an organization that tackles it head on. Charles Nyzabeze, VP of Business Development and Commercialization at CEMI, joins Gus and Eric to discuss transformation in an organization, a recently announced $40 million in federal funding for mining innovation, and much more. Change Itself starts now.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Change Itself. It's awesome that we are already on the 3rd episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If everybody wants to know which episodes are coming up, please go ahead and hit subscribe on our YouTube page. You'll see the links below. And we'll keep this moving forward, which is pretty exciting. We're here today with Eric Demers and myself, Gus Miner. Right on. Thanks for joining us, Eric. Here we are with our 3rd episode already. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, right on. Didn't think we'd make it this far, but we're here.
Yeah, right on. So it seems like we've had some good traction so far, and we're here together with a new guest again this week. So we're pretty excited to introduce our new guest. Our main topic today is going to be talking about transformations versus change, which should be a very enlightening conversation between the 3 of us. What's been going on since our last episode, Eric? Anything you want to share with us now?
Yeah, just one of the things that seems to be happening, and we're seeing around maybe not even just the mining industry, we're just being more present to fatal accidents in the workplace. So I saw a post you put out this morning with the 2.3 million deaths in the last year as a result of workplace injuries. So it's humbling, and things are still happening, and incidents are still happening. So I, wouldn't mind if we took a moment to reflect on that and think of people that and people that are affected. It's not just the person themselves, it's their family, their community, their coworkers, and it's got a massive impact. So just wanted to share with that.
Thanks a lot for sharing that, Eric. I know that it's always something that we feel as a localized event when something happens, whether it's from a loved one or someone in the community or someone that we work with. But we really start looking at the numbers at scale. It's alarming, right? It's alarming, and ultimately, then you start thinking, what can we do? And some of the conversations that I've had in the past few days have been, around the fact that, we have a lot of time and energy and budget available to put things as a reaction to a loss, and to try to make some transformation, so some change happens, so we can start preventing or keep working on prevention. But it's great that we're doing that after the fact. What kind of energy could be put? I mean, I know that for myself, when things occur, you think about, oh shoot, if I would have just done this, or if I would have just listened to that, or if I would have just spoke up, we could have avoided that. And it's not only having to mourn the losses that we have in the workplace with those events, but it's also mourning the what could have been within many different individuals. And that's another piece, right? We have to live with the outcomes of the guilt that we have with ourselves. So we've had a lot of conversations internally here about continuing to work. We talk about a lot of the core values that we try to instill and to carry forward in not only in our family lives but in our work lives. When we talk about courage, humility, integrity. And ultimately, what I came down to is that it's not just a core value that you say that this is what I believe in. It's also a developed skill. It's not easy to keep your promise. It's not easy to stop something when you know that it's not right. It's not easy to have the courage to bring somebody, to talk somebody out of something that they're committed of doing for themselves. There's a lot of work to be done there, and it's going to be interesting how we tackle things as an industry. And I think overall, this would be a great opportunity to also introduce our guest this week, Charles Nyzabeze from CEMI. He's up to him and the CEMI team are up to some fantastic things. Welcome on the show, Charles.
Thank you, Gus. Thanks for having me. And hello, Eric.
Nice to meet you, Charles.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah. So based on a conversation that we started, you've got some pretty interesting announcements and pretty exciting news for everyone with the recent public announcement of a new milestone in your journey, which a lot of it has to do with safety and transformations in the mining industry. So if you want to, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Again, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And Gus, look, you're a thought leader, and I know that your intentions are in the right place, and I know that this podcast is going to impact many people's lives in more significant ways than we can even measure, right? So my role at CEMI is CEMI, which is the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. I'm the Vice President, Business Development and Commercialization. And, we recently got awarded a $40 million federal funding opportunity that we've been working on for the past 2 years. And what this opportunity allows to happen is it allows technical projects that allow us to push the envelope forward in how innovations are being adopted by the mining industry, not only the Canadian mining industry, but the global mining industry. So it's a huge opportunity to find that seed capital and help that will accelerate the commercial adoption of technologies. Then the other big part of this initiative is the network development activities. We really want to support activities that support innovation within an organization and within the ecosystem, and also want to build the capacity of the ecosystem to do what it's already doing great, but to do it even better. You talk about transformation and change. We really are looking to transform the industry and not just to change it.
So Charles, for you, what's the difference between transformation and change? How would you differentiate both of them?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Eric. Look, my dad has taught me a long time ago that when you're reading something and you come across a word you don't understand, he told me go look in the dictionary, right? So, I did that actually, guys. I did that today. I looked at the dictionary, and the funny thing is, transformation from a dictionary definition is just like bigger change. That's kind of what they say. It's kind of bigger change, right? And look, when you look at a transformation from sort of maybe the mathematical side of things, it's just a different way of doing something to get the same value, right? So for mathematically, transformation is do something different, same value. But I think what we want to talk about when we say transformation is different actions, more value, or different value, right? So now you're talking about a true transformation. And I think, within organizations, for example, I think to change may actually just mean you change how you do things, but you get the same value, right? It's like 1 plus X as opposed to 1 plus X plus Y, but same value, right? So I think transformation has to have a different value or a significant change in how the work is being approached. But I think given that, we work within business context most of the time, we're always looking to get that additional value and not just change how we achieve at the same value. And again, look, even from a spiritual standpoint, somebody can say, well, you'll be transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's like, what does that mean, right? It's a whole different mindset, a whole different way of looking at things. So I think it's just maybe the measure of the extent of the transformation or the change where we call transformation. So maybe we need to decide right now, how much change do we call transformation? Is it 50% change or 100% change? So
yeah, I look at it from sorry, Gus. I look at it from like I can hear it in what you're saying, and it's very similar. Whereas change is like a really slow evolution to doing something different, better, but with the same kind of outcome, if you will. And where like transformation for me is like going to look at and explore, and question myself on what I don't know. Like I can go look at a book, I can go read up on, I don't know, you name it. Could be artificial intelligence. I'll know about artificial intelligence, but it doesn't open the door for me with what's possible with artificial intelligence. So it's just looking at, the things that I don't know that I don't know. And that's where I find it most impactful. And I like to question myself and go look at that. So like, if we loop back to some of your work, is there anything out there that you see that's like something that you've come across that you just didn't know that you didn't know about that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a couple of things that I just didn't know. And I'll point to maybe one example. One example was, look, we all know that, there's something called GPS, right? Like this, the GPS uses satellites, kind of tell you where you are in space and time. And I came across a technology which uses gravity, and the fact that the Earth's rotation is at a certain speed wherever you are in space and time, and that the gravitational pull is unique to every location on the planet, and you can actually use gravity as a GPS. But here's a beautiful thing: this works underground, so this technology can actually tell you where you are in space and time underground. It's like an underground GPS that also works on surface. And I was like, wow, that's completely different. And Eric, I think you're right. It's getting that information that you didn't have before, that then causes you to have that aha moment. What you don't know, can be transformative for sure.
That one just blew my mind. I'd never heard of that before. That's awesome.
It is really cool. It is really cool. Yeah, because we talk a lot about how the conditions are so different underground than they are on surface, and locationing has been brought to different infrastructures to find a way to find positioning underground in different ways, because you don't have that GPS system. So now that you're saying that there's actually a way to have a GPS system follow you on surface as well as underground as one cohesive system, that's amazing.
And you're right. I mean, I think what's amazing is too good to be true, right? That's why it's so amazing, right? It's like, wow, it's too good to be true. And at CEMI, we come across a lot of technologies that are too good to be true. For example, when you start talking about gold extraction without using cyanide or mercury, some people don't even believe it's true, right? Whereas it's already happening, right? And so there are things like that, like measuring water quality in real time. And it's things that are too good to be true. And I think, Eric, to speak to what you're talking about, that whole new way of looking at things with new information, I think transformation is very embedded in that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think for me as well, when I think about transformation versus incremental change or different change initiatives, is that a change will impact, it'll be something that you'll put in particular to have a significant outcome of X, right? And transformation to me is all of those different changes that give you an X result that are aligned for a much greater output. So you would have multiple things that you're changing for the greater outcome, which would be transformational. Because we see it a lot of times where, this is not the output we expect, we're going to change this. And then this is not the output we expect, we're going to go change this. And what we talked to Eric and I a few days ago was all of those changes that occur are actually aligning the Swiss cheese pattern perfectly for a failure or a catastrophic event. I mean, it could line up as well. They could line up very well for a transformation that you never anticipated. It could happen that way as well. But, no different than when you have things that are happening on the stock market or things like that, where all of these different impacts are happening at once, which creates the perfect storm for either a transformational success or a substantial collapse, right? And we think about that in the sense of a workplace where individually all those initiatives made sense, and individually all those initiatives might be succeeding to a certain extent, but together as a group, it's not great. So that's how I kind of saw the difference between things that you're doing to achieve a transformation within your organization or your structure versus a specific change initiative, right?
Have you guys ever been part of like a transformational change versus like a air quotes, I guess, if you will, like a change initiative? Like what's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example of what I think I've experienced as transformational. When I first started working with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation, we were really close to the mid to low TRL scale, which meant that, the technologies we're looking at were sort of more recent research outcomes, as opposed to an outcome that had kind of gone beyond research and had now gone to that lab scale. And but as time moved forward, since 2008 and 12, we've now moved over to the late stage TRL levels, that where what that means is that it's more demonstration project ready to go into an operational setting, right? And to be able to shift an organization from sort of looking at one aspect of the market to another aspect of the market is quite transformational, because you start to speak a different language, right? And which means your culture has to change, right? You're no longer speaking the language that is sort of consistent with someone who is trying to perfect a research outcome. But now you're saying, you know what, let's take that research outcome and actually look at its commercial application. And I think that's very transformational in because it's a change, right? It's like a whole change. And guys, just to add on something you said earlier on, I view innovation, as point solutions that are brought together in a system, right? So in other words, yes, they're individual solutions, but they're all point solutions. But together, the whole idea of the sum of the whole is greater than sum of the parts, right? So you kind of get 1 + 1 = 20, right? As opposed to 1 + 1 = 2. And I really believe that transformation is when you can do that, right? So whenever you can make 1 + 1 = 3, you got transformation, right? As long as it's equal to 2, it's change, but it's not transformational change.
Every worker deserves to go home safely at the end of the day. Book a demo with Sophie to discover how their groundbreaking EHS management software empowers workers to proactively avoid hazards and how organizations like yours can cultivate a stronger work culture. Visit them at sophie.com to learn more. Technica Mining is a premier underground mining and construction contractor. They stand for delivering quality project work on time and on budget through innovative thinking. Their excellent safety record, experienced workforce, and large equipment fleet will guarantee the timely completion of all your project needs. Trusted by the world's leading mining companies, Technica Mining has over 20 years of experience in mine construction, development, and production. Contact Technica Mining to take your next mining project to the next level. Learn more at technicamining.com. Change Itself is produced by Crownsman, the voice of industry. Check out more, including The Crownsman Show, Mining Now, Crownsman Energy, and Crownsman Egg at crownsman.com.
We've had, well, I know I've recently had a lot of conversations around systems and what would be the next frontier in breaking through different results, right? Because where I stand, I've got a lot of different people reaching out to me to use the same tool in many different ways, and for them, those impacts are transformational within their organization, because that is specifically the desired result that they're chasing. So just because you build a system or a tool in a certain way doesn't mean that that's the only way that it serves a use for people that are using it. So, I was thinking about that, where some people actually, it's funny because this is a conversation that struck a chord with me, where some people say, we don't need another system, or we don't need systems to be better. There's got to be something else. But in the same way, they're going to ask for an output from you that comes directly from a system, right? And systems don't necessarily have to be, like, I view systems in a much different way, where it's not a computer, it's not a software, it's not a technology, it's not an automation process, it's not, those are all things that you can build systems with, and it's a system that will enhance more systems. I get that. But even things like preparing your clothes the night before and they're sitting at the end of your bed for the morning, that's a system. It's a system that you built for yourself to be successful for the day that's coming up. So you get up, you don't have to think about what you're going to wear, you put on your clothes, and then away you go. And when you start taking a look at all of these micro systems that you follow through the day, you start to realize that systems are, they're much bigger than anybody anticipates, because everybody finds a way to be successful with the systems of their choosing. And that it's systems that create habits. Now, a system that's not put together properly will create unfavorable habits, which will then have to be broken, which is all, it's a bigger conversation there as well. But a well-formulated system can create habits that enable you to even tackle on bigger systems. Eric and I had this conversation. So I'm about to move in the next 5 to 6 weeks, which I hate moving. It's terrible. I don't recommend it for anyone. I'm just not a fan of it. However, it's something that needs to happen. And when you look at it from a task standpoint, it's a mountain of a task, especially when you got a family and dogs and everything else. Like, it's a big task. However, the way that we broke it down in our home is we said, you know what, let's just do this. Let's pack 2 to 4 boxes per day for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we've broken it down into micro tasks. And what we did is we said, we're going to do this task between 5 o'clock and 6:30 every night. So now we've actually systemized our micro task. And when we did the math and when we looked at it, by the time we get to the week where we're about to move, we don't have to worry about any of that. It's basically just put it in the truck and then go. Right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
then because I really started thinking about transformational movements that you can have within an organization. And a lot of times we look at different things that we have to do as a huge mountain to overcome. Right? Right on. Now, as a group, what if we just broke it down into small pieces? And when you look at a software package, for example, a lot of software packages these days have become very, very complex and very full, rich of features. So if you just say, you know what, we're going to have this amazing transformation within our company. Here's this package. Let's all go gangbusters and implement all of these different modules and these different features. You're going to have a heck of a time. That's a massive journey that's almost unsurmountable. And it's almost, it almost equates to uncertain failure or certain failure at this point. But if you say, you know what, today we're just going to log in. We just want everybody to just log in. And then that's your task for today. And we'll get really good at just logging in, right? And now we're going to take care of the problem of what's my password and how do we get there, right? As an example. And then the next day, it's, you know what, we're going to open this one section and we're going to work in this one section. And that's what we're going to master this over the next 5 days. And when you break it down like that, like, yeah, your journey might be 3 years, the same as it would have been. However, at the end of the 3 years, you're looking at a full transformation on how the language is occurring in the day, how you're leveraging the tools that you've mastered. Whereas the other way around of just saying, here's everything, let's just go nuts and then find value in it the way that we see fit. 3 years from now, we still don't have alignment. We may not have full adoption, and we're still having the same conversations as day one. I know. And those are the things that kind of like, I simmer on all the time because there's, systems will set you free. I've always said it, like, systems and processes will set you free, not only from a liability or legal standpoint, but mostly from a success standpoint. Like, you build those things to be successful.
One of the things Charles said earlier around like that really hit me around transformation was like the piece around language. Like when you went from like one market segment to another and you just got to change your language, that one hit home, because when we're talking about change initiatives or any change initiatives I've been involved with, there's a little bit of the language, but maybe not focused there enough. And like, you've actually got to transform your mindset and your language and how you speak about these things. And I mean, you touched about it. The second you said the word system, I like cringed, right? Because it sometimes got like it's got a bad rap, if you will, but at the end of the day, you explained that it's nothing difficult, and it's actually there to benefit you. But I don't know, my experience with the word system has been, at times people fear it.
Yeah. If I can just maybe, add to what both of you were saying around systems, in my work, we've recognized that a change in one part of the system can cause problems in another part of the system. And I think Gus, you're kind of talking about that, how, as you think it's a great change you're implementing, but you don't realize that you're actually creating the perfect storm for a disaster, right? And so because of that level of thinking, of looking at a system-wide approach, it's good to try and envision impact, down the line, right? So I always talk about upstream and downstream, right? Okay, wow. okay, sure, you want to make a change here today, but how does it impact downstream and upstream, right? I've often say to people, if you wanted to change the tires that you use on a vehicle underground, did you talk to procurement, for example, right? I mean, you want to change the tires, but have you spoken to the whole chain of supply chain about getting that new tire, because it's going to cause a lot of problems, right? And you might not even know that you're tied into that tire by some other arrangement, right? So I think change within a system, it has to be thought out carefully, right? And then the other piece that Gus, that I wanted to touch on was, in Africa, there's this saying that says the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Right. And not that I eat elephants or anything like that, but certainly, you know what, I think change is like that, right? You talk about moving, right? But then again, you talk about even weight training, talk about weight training, Gus will know all about that more than I can know about that in muscle building. If you start off with the smaller weights and you sort of build up your muscle, in time you can get tougher, right? So in the workplace, what I find is, if you don't have that same approach of saying, okay, you know what, here's a little bite, and here's a bigger bite, and then here's a bigger bite. Now, if you show up on the day when I'm on the 10th bite, you're gonna be like, wow, transformation, right? In same way, with Highway 69 and double laning it. If you don't go down that highway for a good 4 or 5 months, when you end up driving there, you're like, wow, what happened, right? Transformation, right? But to the workers on the road, it's not a transformation. For them, it's like daily grind, right? It's like, wow, boy, daily grind. But to me, the guy who hasn't been on Highway 69 for a couple of months, like, wow, big change, right? So I always say maybe transformation is in the eye of the beholder, right? Depends, who's looking at the transformation. For some people, it's not a big deal what you think is a transformation, whereas some people think they've moved a mountain an inch when it's a small change for someone else.
That's some awesome insight, Charles. Like that, I'll use blow my mind again, but blew my mind. It's in the eye of the beholder. It's all in your perspective. It could be all in your perspective of where you're at, because even with social media and the way things are, you don't see the journey, you just see the result. And so it's easy to get lost in that, like, I just want the result piece.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and maybe that's why maybe success happens to those who are willing to delay gratification, right? Because you recognize that change is not going to happen overnight, right? That it's going to take time, right? In the same, if you want to accumulate anything of value, right, you have to sort of be patient enough to see it through, and that is allowing the change to happen, right? Talk about transformation recently. I don't know about you guys, but my oak trees outside were attacked by these worms over the last couple of months. And now there's butterflies. It's like, well, what happened, right? Transformation. But I witnessed it happening, right? So for me, it wasn't a transformation. It was like a gradual process of seeing leaves broken down and chewed up, the trees looking like they're about to die. But now that the butterflies have come out, or the moths, not butterflies, it's a transformation there as well.
On the topic of technology, so it's something we tend to talk about on this podcast. Charles, anything, I know you talked about earlier, the underground, like the GPS work underground. Yep. Are there any other like really interesting, sharp technologies you've come across in the? Yeah.
I mean, that's you asking the wrong guy that question. I'll talk all day about that now. But look, I think safety is something that can be guaranteed. And I think you can build tools that are intrinsically safe, not just intrinsically safe from blowing up, because that's what that really means, right? Is that intrinsically safe is it won't cause a fire underground or something like that, right? It won't cause a problem. But really, it's safety, right? Intrinsically safe from a safety standpoint is possible. We're seeing a lot of automation coming into the mining industry, and before there's a lot of that talk about tele-remote, right? Tele-remote is person is still involved in doing something, right? Whereas with automation and autonomous, you sort of remove the person 100% from the system, right? A lot of machine to machine is happening in mining now, and the inclusion, the involvement of, or the integration of AI and machine learning is really creating an industry in a way where any of those environments that could have brought a human being to risk, are completely being de-risked 100%, right? People don't need to be at the face anymore. They don't have to be, right? The technology is there. We might not have adopted it, but it's available. May not be as fast as it should be, but it's still available. With what's happening with technologies like LiDAR being able to see things better, from a distance, and being really able to measure what you're looking at. I think all those technologies are making a huge difference. Look, mining being, a cyclical, a cycle, right? There's innovation happening in every aspect of it. There are things happening in the exploration side, where we can look deeper, at what's underground. And there are things happening at the mine design level. There are things happening at the, mine development level, and yet along the operations, mineral processing, mine rehabilitation, mine closure. So it really is a spectrum of innovations happening under all those areas. And it's hard for me to pinpoint any one of them. I don't want to pick any favorites or anything like that. But that's what we're seeing is happening. And then another trend we're seeing is there's an influx of innovations from other sectors that wants to make its way into the mining sector from other sectors. And that's going to cause a lot of change to happen very fast in the mining sector. And the resistance to change mechanisms, that are built into habits, like what Gus was talking about, will need to be carefully, approached so that, you inform and reduce the barriers to entry.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, because speaking of different industries, I mean, having brought up within a technology industry, I wake up every morning to change. I wake up every morning to, guess what? You used to do it this way. As of today, is this way, because who knows? Maybe Microsoft released a new version of Windows. Maybe there's been a huge update that completely transformed how you approach things. Maybe there's a new troubleshooting tool. In technology, change is not even a word, really. It's just, we just call it adapting and pivoting and just keep moving forward. And then you go to different industries and you say, hey, can you just use a red book instead of a blue book? Well, hold on here. I'm so used to using a blue book. Like, why do you want me to change it to a red book? So there's a very, very big gap between all of the different industries that we can think of when it comes to adopting and absorbing change. So having all of these very quickly progressing innovations and movements within a mining industry, I think is a very positive thing. Like, yeah, we're going to go through a moments of chaos. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be moments of chaos where things will be ripped out and pushed in. But, I'm looking forward to the day where we're talking about the mining industry as one of the most adaptable industries on the planet, right? Where it's like, yeah, 5 years ago we were mining this way. Now we're mining this way. So what? Let's keep moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And what's nice is that, like the more and more conversations that I'm having with different layers of organizations, they're not only, like, I noticed a difference between that, like within the last 2 years, where a lot of the workforce has been resistant to a lot of this change, to now seeing that, hey, you know what? I'm no longer exposing myself. I'm not concerned that this machine or this process will replace my job. It just means that my job is going to be different now. And I'm not exposing myself every single day. How awesome is that? So I feel like that conversation is going in the right direction to create that climate for true adoption and true transformation in the industry. So it's exciting, super exciting.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, I think, just to be fair, when anybody says mining, for example, right? I mean, you almost have to ask the qualifying question: what do you mean, right?
Yeah.
Because the mining industry is, it's sulfy, right? The mining industry is it's CEMI, it's Vale, but guess what? It's also Janatech, it's also, FVT, right? It's also, all these other organizations that form part of the industry, and everybody's offering something different. We need that brain, that sort of coordinates how the industry functions, because if you don't have that, it becomes too complex, right? And then not any one person has it in their brain or their intelligence to coordinate it all, right? So you almost need that artificial piece to come in and step in and help us out. And I think Sophie, with software, right? I think you're on the right track in being able to already have, a digital medium for some of that. And I think that will help facilitate change, because as complexity keeps increasing, especially with technology and how it's growing, it's going to be very difficult soon for anyone to understand all the options available for them, to do anything, right? Whereas, with the technology interfaces, I think it's going to really help us to accelerate change. And I think what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink, people have mixed feelings about becoming bugs or becoming, half machine. But certainly, I think that things like that accelerate change, right? Because because now you can have all the information you need to make the decision right now, right? I've often wondered, how hard is it? I wish my glasses were just built in with a temperature thing already, and not to say it's a Google Glass, but the fact that I need the information now. If I had it now, then I can make a decision sooner. So I think there's something there. Maybe you guys can tell me about that. Is there a correlation between maybe knowledge and change? Like what's the correlation between knowledge and change?
Well, I think you learn, right? Like with information, you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you know, the better you're planning. And the better you're planning, the better you're executing. So I think there's a downstream correlation for sure. It's not like a direct correlation, but I think that it's a downstream correlation.
Mm.
But we talked about different industries, and one of the things that I want to touch on today was like the differences between two flight patterns. So we just witnessed, two billionaires get shot up into outer space, recently. Two very, very different approaches.
Yeah.
One that came in from a different industry, and they're not coming from a rocket industry. When you're looking at Virgin, they're not coming from a rocket industry. So what do? They lean on what they do best, and they fly planes. So they had a plane escalate to a certain height, and then from there, it launched the component that would go into outer space. And I thought that was like, I never even imagined that was going to be a possibility, that you can actually get to a certain elevation the same way as we take a flight to go to different cities, and then go from there. I found that flight fascinating on the approach that they took.
Yes.
Right. And then you've got the typical way with Bezos going up with a rocket, right? Like, I mean, every time I thought about space travel, I thought a rocket takes off from the ground, and then that's just how it is. So really cool to see the differences between the two approaches and the actual outcomes.
I had the opposite,
and also the experience.
I had an opposite kind of like way it occurred to me. It was like the space shuttles we see nowadays look like airplanes. Like the American, the Challenger, their shuttle looks like an airplane, right? With the giant booster inside of it. And so when I saw the Virgin Galactic one go up, I was like, okay, yeah, makes a lot of sense. I thought it was really cool that they were able to land it in the way in which they did it. And it was phenomenal. But then when I saw them take off in the other rocket, and I was like, wow, like I didn't actually think that it would be like a rocket with nobody operating it from inside the rocket. Right? I was like, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, people
It's been impressive.
Join the ride, and then up they go, and then the rocket comes back down, to Earth, lands, and then the capsule comes down, and essentially nobody has to do anything. I thought it was just like unreal.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, I'm a big fan as well of what's been happening, in the race to open up space, for commercial purposes like tourism, for example. But the one thing that Bezos said that I really liked was he said, if we can open up space resources, we can then enable, the heavy industries to be outside of the Earth, right? To be done in space. And I thought that was a good linkage. And I think everything we're talking about with the industry is like, well, how do we exist in an industry that's off planet, right? Because right now we're kind of talking about industry in the context of what we're doing here on the planet. How do you monitor an industry where human safety is no longer an issue, right? Because you kind of built it out of the system, right? You built out accident out of the system. And I think that's kind of where the future is going. And it's fascinating to see it happening in our lifetime. I mean, the work that SpaceX has been doing in reducing the cost of bringing a payload into space is phenomenal, right? But the thing is, those technologies have applications to what we're doing here. Someone told me that they told me that the mining industry has a good safety record, but the space industry has a higher safety record. I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. I wonder how they measured that, right? And I wonder how the space industry sort of came to that conclusion, that they had a better safety record than the mining.
Right on. Well, hey, Charles, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Sure thing.
It was an amazing conversation, which I anticipated, and I knew you were gonna deliver. It's always an interesting time to spend with you. And Eric, thanks a lot. Episode 3 is in the books.
Right, guys. Just want to thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward to the success of this podcast, and continue to support it in any way that we can.
Well, thank you, Charles. It was quite enlightening. Really appreciated that. Thanks, Gus.
Sure thing.
Right on. Till next time, everyone. Hope you
Okay.
enjoyed.